Okay, so it would be great if we can execute the right to be forgotten in an automation plan. But there's no activity type for that. We do not have a marketing action that executes the right to be forgotten. So we need to create a custom activity type for that. There's an excellent series of blog posts on how to do this, written by Alexei Vasalovic, and I will share the link to that blog series at the end of my presentation. I'm not going to explain how marketing automation plans work. I'm kind of assuming you know how they work, and I'm going to dive straight into building a custom activity type. The first thing you need to do is you have to create an Npm project and a package JSON, because we need to build an Angular app for this. There are a few things you have to keep in mind, and that is that you need to point to be able to build the actual plugin, and we're going to create an Angular. You have to point to the marketing automation core in your local Sitecore deployment, so you need to configure this folder and update this this reference. And then we're going to define a plugin class, and we're using TypeScript for that. This is the plugin class, and there's a few things you can see. We need to refer to a Sitecore item that defines the custom activity type. I will show that in a minute. And we're going to name it, and we're going to also define an editor component. Please note that this is not spelled correctly, but that's actually correct because that's also how it is named in Sitecore. So do not correct that, because your solution won't work. So we're going to build a module, and the module is named AnonymizeContact, because that's the only thing we're going to do. We're going to anonymize a certain contact. So after you've defined the activity, which is this one, and the editor component, we're going to define the actual activity item. It is derived from a single item, because there's actually just a single path. There's no decision paths, yes or no, or different routes. There's one outgoing path. You just erase it and then go through with your marketing automation plan. So a single item applies here. And we are also going to set is defined to true. Is defined tells the editor if the activity type is ready and completely defined. And although we do not have any parameters, we still need to define the component, which in our case is just displaying the name of our module. There's no extra configuration in here. And lastly, we need to define the AOT JSON configuration, which also points to the module in here. And I have the module class in here as well, with the declaration of the component. So that's actually a little bit of Angular, which we're going to build with Webpack. As you can see here, this is where we have created the client application, but this is not the location where it is running in Sitecore. There's actually a path, Sitecore shell client applications marketing automation plugins, and we need to put it here. But we're going to build it using Webpack. So we have a Webpack config, and you see that the path is defined here, and we build it into here. I myself included a small PowerShell script which runs at build time and puts it in the right folder. And you can see I've excluded it from Git by putting this in the git ignore and putting it there at build time, and it's included in the solution with a wildcard, so it's automatically being deployed as a resource. And that's about it, what we need to do. It's some very simple steps. And actually the plugin configuration, which you can see right here, there's a marketing automation plugin descriptor, and we point to the path we've created the plugin in with the correct file name. And that's basically everything you need to do to let Sitecore know that there's a plugin running and that the script is over there. And then for the backend code, we're going to create a class that's AnonymizeContact. And we actually have only one line of real code, and that is execute the right to be forgotten on the contact from the current context. We submit this, and then we return a new success move, which tells the marketing automation plan to move to the next step. Obviously, when something goes wrong, we return a failure, and then the marketing automation plan will freeze and will not continue to run. And this is actually very clean because it's only this one single line of code that's been executed, and the when and how it's been executed is completely arranged by the marketing automation plan. So now we're going to go to the Sitecore content editor to show you that in the system folder and then settings, in analytics, marketing automation activity types, we've created a new item, AnonymizeContact. And you see this is the ID that we're using in the plugin to point to, and it has to match this item. Furthermore, we're going to give it a name, an icon, and very important, the assembly type of the class we've created in here to be executed when the code runs. And it is part of the classification marketing actions. And that's all we need to do. There's only one thing left, and that is we also need to deploy this to the Xconnect project. So I'm to go to the Xconnect project in the Habitat solution, and you can see right here that in the app data is a jobs continuous automation engine, and within the app data there's again some subfolders. We have two things we need to put in there. In the automation engine itself, we need a compile DLL. I don't really like putting it in here as a hard-coded reference to the build code, but for ease of the demo, I'm just going to put it in here. It would be even nicer if you just make it a part of your deployment script. And within the app data config cycle marketing automation folder, we need to register the activity type. And you can see here that we have defined our assembly type, and again the same ID of the Sitecore item. And these are the steps we need to take to build a custom activity type. And now comes the magic, because if we now go to an automation plan and we create a new one for this, we have the AnonymizeContact, and I can just put it in here, and whenever this marketing automation plan runs at this step, my contact will be anonymized. And as you can see, it immediately jumps to the defined state. And if I would put in another one like this, I still need to configure stuff, and it's not defined, so it's not fully finished. And that's what I did by, let me show you with the activity type, just put it on is defined right away. So you don't need to configure anything. There's no parameters here, so the editor component is quite easy. And now we need to have an entry for that plan. So we're going to configure some specific rules in the rule set editor for the automation plan to get triggered. And we're going to do that by searching for interacted, because what we want for sliding expiration is that when a contact hasn't interacted with your platform for a certain amount of time, you're going to dispose the data. The one that fits this best is actually the number of times someone has interacted in a certain amount of time. So I'm going to say where the number of times the contact has interacted on any channel in the past, and now you can say like 2 years, for example. So I will set this to 2 years is equal to 0. So if someone has interacted 0 times in 2 years, I want to dispose the data. There's only one thing I can add. I want to make sure that the contact is known, because for a profile that isn't identified, I'm not really storing any data. So I'm going to do it like this. And this is all. Let me apply. And this is all. Now we have a very simple and easy to use marketing automation plan that will automatically clean up the data, and it runs right away, and it does my cleanup continuously, and I never have to worry there's any data of people that stop interacting with me, and I can make this compliant with my privacy policy. And the great thing is I can also use this step at the end of, let's say, if I have an email unsubscribe button or a specific campaign and I will need to use this, I can put it in the automation plan as well. I don't have to stick to only this plan. I can reuse the anonymized contact if someone requires to get anonymized for any reason. So that's it. That's the end of the first demo, and I think it's a very elegant solution. I've also created, I'm going to throw this away, I've also created a template for this. This is the Sliding Expiration, and you can use that yourself as a starting point. I've configured it exactly the same, so you can create a new plan off of this template